Hey guys, Mr. V over here, doing a book review today for The Pearl by John Steinbeck. Before I get into my book review, I want you to know that I try to do a spoiler-free book review. So let's get into the book review today for The Pearl. Now, this is a novella, and it's a fairly short one. I think the audio is only 2.5 hours, so you can see it's pretty short. But it is a simple story with a big meaning to it, because the main premise is about a guy who has no money. He discovers this pearl, which is known to be the pearl of the world. It's supposed to be worth a lot of money. But the core theme to it is, how will this money change his life and his family's life, for both the good and the bad? So you can see it has a pretty big meaning for it being such a short story. And I really enjoyed this novella because I thought it was a great plot, because we all want to win the lottery. We all want that tons of money, but we don't think about what can happen. Yeah, we always think about some of the great, but we don't think some of the negatives that can happen or some of the difficulties we can face if we win that amount of money and all of a sudden everyone around you starts changing. And I think one reason I liked the book a lot was his writing style. Steinbeck always does a great job where he just somehow just like brings you into the story and just makes it very easy. And he also does a great job of setting up the characters very quickly. As I said, it's a short book. It's only 2.5 hours. Yet he sets up the characters very quickly so that you get a feel for who the characters are and the town they live in. You know, the main character, he lives in a small town. It's a very poor town. And Steinbeck just does a great job of describing everything, so you really feel like you are watching it. And he also does a great job like showing how humans act. You know, like all of a sudden, if someone in the town gets a lot of money, how would people act? And how like immediately everyone in the town starts to think about how can they get part of that money? You know, what services can they offer to get that money in some way, or what can they do to get to that money? And the guy who discovered the pearl, who discovers all the money, he's the one that stands between the people in the town and the money. So now a lot of their plans and all this kind of stuff, you know, he's the one that determines what happens to the money. So like he almost becomes the enemy of people because they're like, he's the one that stands between them and their plan. And just, they don't share in his happiness. You can see that. And just the difficulties then that he may start to face. So, you know, he shows that in the book. And that's why you can see this is a very big plot for such a short story. You know, like what money can do, both the good and the bad, and how it changes people. You know, it changes the person who gets the money. It also changes a lot of the people around them. So that's why I really enjoyed the plot line, and I found this to be very true, because this happens like all the time. You know, it happens when you hear about people like some of these athletes who all of a sudden get millions of dollars, or sometimes the people who win lotteries, and all of a sudden everyone around them changes, and people just start to act differently when they know you have money, and they all kind of want some of that money. So, you know, that's why, even though it's a fictional novel, it's very true on how people act. And one thing I wish for this book is, I wish he would have made it a full novel, because then he would have been able to like flesh it out a little bit more. Because some of the parts were a little short. Like I felt some parts were like pretty short to where he didn't get to fully flesh out all the aspects of it. And, you know, that's just my own opinion. But overall, you know, I'd say I didn't have any negatives for this book. You know, there were some parts towards like the middle end, which I didn't like. The absolute end, I did like. But the middle end, some scenes to me I did not like, and I wasn't a fan of one scene in particular. But, you know, overall, you know, I still thought I enjoyed the book, and if you're considering it, I recommend it, as it's a pretty easy book to read and has a very powerful message. But let me give it my official rating now. So I always rate my books on a scale of 0 to 10. 0 is an awful book, a 5 is an average, and a 10 is phenomenal. If it's anywhere near 10, put it on your reading list, because I'm a tough critic, and a 5 is average. So for The Pearl by John Steinbeck, I'm going to rate this book a 7, because I have to say, you know, as I said, I enjoyed the book. You heard what I liked about it, and it's a short book. It's very easy. It has a powerful message. And while there is no age limit on this, I would actually recommend it for people over the age of 18, so that you understand the core message that Steinbeck is trying to show. I read online that some like assign this to like be read in middle school, and I feel that's a little too early to read this book, because then I think you don't really understand it, like what he's trying to portray, and like you don't get the life experiences yet about how people do act and all that. But again, that's my own personal opinion. If you guys have any comments, you have any questions, post it in the comment section below, because I always love hearing your comments, your suggestions on books. If you guys enjoyed the book review today, hit the subscribe button, as I always upload multiple different book reviews. But thank you for watching my book review today. This is Mr. V. Go enjoy your reading.